Hi everyone. This is a very reasonable Japanese hand plane that I use, and it seems like quite a few people get the same thing as their first plane. So today I'll show you how I set it up. Well, the bottom line is this plane isn't as complicated as a pricey typical Japanese plane, so you can enjoy messing around with it. Okay, so this is the one. It came with an English manual too, but I won't use it. Anyways, once you get it, you need to pull out the irons by hammer. To avoid splitting the base, please be sure to hit the correct parts of the base like the picture. Before prepping the irons, let me tell you about the differences between this plain iron and the typical plain iron. This one is a typical plain iron, and you can see two layers of the irons. The one is the hardened iron layer, and the other one is the soft iron layer. Though the small one is a single layer only. On top of it, this iron doesn't have a hollowed part where it's called urasuki, while it's an essential feature of Japanese plane for better accuracy. Well, it's okay, this small plane will still perform more than good enough for most of the small works. Okay, now by using this Atoma diamond plate, I'll make the non-bevel side of the iron flat where it's called ura. Well, this iron was pretty warped on one edge, and the warped corner actually wasn't hitting the diamond plate at all. Can you see it? If that is the case on a typical plain iron, you need to tap the iron from the bevel side to push it to front, which is called an uradashi process, but this is a single layer hardened iron, so you can just flatten it until it gets flat. It's a small iron, so it didn't take much time. Oh, yeah, about the sharpening motion for this flattening, I pay attention on one thing. If you go just back and forth like the left side, it will make a bump on the iron. Instead, I move the iron back and forth and gradually move sideways too, like you see in the right. In this way, it eventually makes the iron curved a little bit, but at least the edge can get flat with no bump on the iron. Then, this is a chip breaker, and I took the same approach to make this one flat too. This was already almost flat, so it only took a few seconds to finish. Then I checked if the chip breaker touches the cutting iron edge without a gap. You can see the light in between the irons, and it's wobbly. To fix it, you can use a hammer to tap one corner flatter, but I decided to shave the corner. Now the chip breaker sits on the cutting iron without a gap. Okay, then I'll use 1K and 4K grit whetstones to finish flattening the irons, and then I'll work on the bevel side of the cutting iron and the chip breaker. I told you for this type of planes, 4K grit is fine enough to finish. Well, I realized the bevel of this iron is so off, as you can see the red marker is still there, so I decided to correct it with the diamond plate. The bad news is my phone battery died, so this is another day to finish. Anyways, when I sharpen plain iron, I tend to make a short stroke movement. I just feel this is a more stable way than a long stroke, especially when my hands are on the farther end and the nearest end of my body while doing a long stroke sharpening motion. For the chip breaker, you just need to pull a couple of strokes with a high angle like 50 degrees. It doesn't have to be that accurate. Okay, there is a ding on the side as I mentioned, but the edge is flat already, so I just left it as is, and hopefully the ding will be gone as I use it. Moving on to the adjusting base. Now I need to shape the base to fit the iron in, but here's the most important thing. When you shape the base, please do not shape the top part of the grooves. It will be the reference of the cutting iron angle, and shaping here is like changing the bed angle on the western plane. Once again, it's because the reference side of Japanese plain iron is ura like the picture. Anyways, all you need to do is put pencil graphite on the cutting iron and fit it in the base and remove it. Then, wherever you see the graphite left over on the base, it's where you need to shave off. I repeat this process until the edge of the iron comes close to the mouth like 1/32 of an inch. After I finished it, I worked on the sole of the base and first I made the sole flat. I used the granite surface plate that I recently bought, but I used to use this small glass which works okay too. If you wonder the grit of sandpaper, I think it's 180 or maybe 120. And as I know this base is pretty off, I just sand it until it gets close flat. When it's almost done, now I mark the bottom again and put the irons in and finish flattening the sole. This is basically because when you set the irons in the base, the irons push the sole a little bit and it makes the sole bump like the picture. Therefore, to finish flattening the sole, you always need to set the irons in, but it can be like 1/32 of an inch above the sole, so sandpaper won't ruin the cutting edge. Once the sole gets perfectly flat, I shape the sole. Basically, like the picture shown, I leave 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch flat from the heel, the toe, and right below the mouth, and then sand off the rest about the postcard thickness. See, you can see through the light from where you sand, and also you can be sure the 3 points of the contact, the heel, the toe, and the part below the mouth. This is pretty much it, and without recording it for YouTube, it would only take an hour or two. Anyways, let's test it. This is the sole of the small plane. The mouth was pretty wide, but this isn't a finishing plane, so it's okay. For the performance, it works, but the shavings are a little too curly, meaning the chip breaker isn't doing its job quite well. Though this is a block plane to do small job like chamfering corners and flattening a dowel head after it's trimmed out. And I don't think it is for flattening this size of wood, so it's not a big problem. But sure, there is a room to improve. See, the shaving is a little too curly. Anyways, let me show you how I wanted the plane to work with my jack plane. You see the shavings shoot out straight, right? But the thing is, this jack plane wasn't this good at the initial setup, and it gets to work by adjusting it as I use and learn more about the plane. So, yeah, from here, I would improve the small plane as I use it. Okay, one more time after I did a little adjustment on the small plane, meaning I reshaped the chip breaker so it contacts with the cutting iron better, but now it's kind of jamming at the mouth. You know, this is the reality for my level woodworking. We have to learn and fix it as we use it, but isn't that fun? Anyways, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I would be happy if you liked the video and happier if you subscribe to this channel. If you have any suggestion to my video, it's also welcome. See you!